What lies beneath the glittering facade of Hollywood's golden age? Behind the dazzling smiles and iconic performances, many of its leading ladies faced personal demons, societal pressures, and tragic ends. This documentary delves deep into the lives of 15 such actresses, revealing the stark contrast between their public personas and private struggles. Doris Day. Doris Day, with her sunshine-bright smile and melodic voice, embodied the wholesome, all-American girl image that captivated post-war America. Born Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff in Cincinnati, Ohio, she rose to prominence first as a big band singer before transitioning to a highly successful film career. Her cheerful demeanor and seemingly perfect on-screen relationships in romantic comedies with Rock Hudson and James Garner created an idealistic fantasy that resonated with audiences across the nation. However, the stark contrast between her public persona and private reality reveals one of Hollywood's most poignant disconnects. Day's personal life was marked by a series of devastating betrayals and financial catastrophes. Married 4 times, she endured physical abuse from her first husband, trombonist Al Jordan, who was reportedly jealous of her success and once attempted to force her to abort their child. Her son, Terry Melcher, would later become her only real constant in a life filled with turmoil. Her marriage to saxophonist George Weidler lasted barely a year, dissolving as her star began to rise. It was her third husband, Martin Melcher, who would inflict the most devastating blow to Day's life. Acting as both her husband and manager for 17 years, Melcher, along with lawyer Jerome Rosenthal, squandered her fortune of over $20 million. Upon Melcher's death in 1968, Day was horrified to discover she was not only broke, but $450,000 in debt. Adding insult to injury, she learned Melcher had committed her to a television series, The Doris Day Show, without her knowledge, forcing her to work for years to reclaim financial stability. Despite her image as the perpetually virginal girl next door, Day's real life was anything but innocent bliss. She eventually won a $22 million lawsuit against Rosenthal, though she collected only a fraction of that amount. Following these betrayals, Day retreated from Hollywood, focusing instead on animal welfare advocacy. She established the Doris Day Animal League in 1987, channeling her pain into purpose by fighting for those who couldn't speak for themselves. Bette Davis. With her distinctive clipped speech pattern, piercing eyes that could convey volumes without a word, and fearless approach to even the most unflattering roles, Bette Davis redefined what it meant to be a Hollywood actress. Born Ruth Elizabeth Davis in Lowell, Massachusetts, in 1908, Davis fought tirelessly against the studio system's constraints, refusing to be typecast as merely beautiful or agreeable. Her willingness to play unsympathetic characters, from the scheming Regina in The Little Foxes to the aging actress in All About Eve, set her apart in an industry obsessed with female perfection and likability. Davis's battle against Warner Brothers in 1936 became legendary when she fled to England to make films after being repeatedly cast in mediocre productions. Though she lost the lawsuit, her defiance established a precedent for actors' professional rights. She became the first female president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, though her outspoken nature led to her resignation after just 2 months. Throughout her career, she accumulated 10 Academy Award nominations, winning twice for Dangerous and Jezebel. Her rivalry with Joan Crawford reached mythic proportions, especially during the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The antagonism between these two titans stemmed from professional jealousy, romantic entanglements, and fundamentally different approaches to their craft. Davis, a dedicated actress first and foremost, despised what she perceived as Crawford's prioritization of glamour over artistic integrity. Their mutual animosity fueled one of cinema's most electrifying collaborations, though it prevented them from ever working together again. Davis's personal life was marked by similar intensity. Married 4 times, she once remarked, I was too busy with my career to be a good mother or a good wife. Her relationship with her daughter Bette Hyman soured after the latter published a tell-all memoir portraying Davis as an abusive alcoholic. Allegations Davis vehemently denied until her death. Her relationship with her disabled daughter Margot, who was institutionalized with brain damage, remained largely private, revealing a vulnerability Davis rarely displayed publicly. Joan Crawford. Rising from the squalor of a childhood marked by poverty and desertion, Lucille Fay LeSueur transformed herself into Joan Crawford, one of Hollywood's most enduring and complex stars. Born around 1904, Crawford's early life in San Antonio, Texas, was defined by hardship. Her father abandoned the family, and her mother's subsequent marriage to a theater owner exposed young Lucille to the world of performance, while reportedly subjecting her to abuse from her stepfather. These early traumas perhaps fueled both her relentless drive for success and her complicated relationship with vulnerability. Crawford's journey to stardom began as a chorus girl, eventually landing her at MGM in 1925. Her transformation was deliberate and calculated. She methodically studied the traits of successful actresses, disciplined her body through rigorous exercise, and cultivated a distinctive look with her prominent eyebrows and exaggerated mouth. Her range was remarkable, successfully transitioning from silent films to talkies, and later reinventing herself when MGM labeled her box office poison in the late 1930s. Her Oscar-winning performance in Mildred Pierce cemented one of Hollywood's greatest comebacks. Behind the cameras, Crawford's personal life revealed deep insecurities. Married 4 times, to actors Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Franchot Tone, Philip Terry, and Pepsi-Cola CEO Alfred Steele, she seemed forever searching for stability. Unable to bear children due to multiple unwanted pregnancies in her youth that resulted in abortions, Crawford adopted 5 children, though she later reclaimed one girl when the biological mother requested money. Her perfectionism extended to her home, where she was known for obsessive cleanliness and strict discipline. Crawford's legacy was forever altered by her adopted daughter, Christina's 1978 memoir, Mommy Dearest, published a year after Crawford's death. The book portrayed Crawford as an alcoholic, abusive mother prone to violent outbursts, famously depicted in scenes involving wire coat hangers and raw meat. While some contemporaries defended Crawford, others corroborated Christina's accounts, creating an enduring debate about the star's private behavior. Crawford's relationship with her twins, Kathy and Cindy, remained more positive, with both daughters defending their mother against Christina's allegations. In her final years, Crawford became increasingly reclusive, battling alcoholism and declining health. Yet even in isolation, she maintained her image, once saying, "If you want to see the girl next door, go next door." Until her death from a heart attack in 1977, Joan Crawford remained what she had always been, a self-made icon whose complex, contradictory nature reflected the opportunities and limitations for women in Hollywood's golden era. Judy Garland. Few Hollywood tragedies capture the devastating effects of early fame, like the story of Judy Garland. Born Frances Ethel Gum in 1922 to vaudeville performers, she was thrust onto the stage at just 2 years old as part of the Gum Sisters. By age 13, she had signed with MGM Studios, launching a career that would bring her international acclaim, while simultaneously setting the stage for her eventual downfall. Her portrayal of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz cemented her place in cinematic history, but also intensified the studio's ruthless control over every aspect of her life. Under Louis B. Mayer's iron-fisted management, the teenage Garland endured horrific treatment in the name of stardom. Studio executives constantly criticized her weight and appearance, calling her their little hunchback and forcing her onto extreme diets. MGM doctors prescribed her a dangerous combination of amphetamines for weight loss and barbiturates to help her sleep, often administering these drugs without her knowledge or consent. This studio-sanctioned regimen established patterns of chemical dependency that would plague her throughout her life. Garland later recalled being given pills with her meals and being told they were vitamins, essential for her energy and growth. On the set of The Wizard of Oz, 16-year-old Garland was reportedly limited to chicken soup, black coffee, cigarettes, and appetite-suppressant pills, while studio minders monitored her food intake. She was forced to wear painful corsets to appear slimmer and work grueling 18-hour days. These experiences during her formative years created deep psychological wounds, leading to 5 suicide attempts before she reached 30. Garland's personal relationships reflected her quest for stability amid chaos. Married 5 times, she sought safety and security, but often found herself with controlling or exploitative partners. Her first husband, composer David Rose, pressured her to have an abortion at MGM's insistence. Her third husband, Sid Luft, managed her career comeback, but also allegedly stole from her earnings. Throughout these relationships, Garland struggled with addiction, depression, and financial troubles, culminating in her firing from MGM in 1950 after multiple production delays and hospitalizations. Veronica Lake. With her signature peekaboo hairstyle partially covering one eye and her petite 4 feet 11 inches frame, Veronica Lake embodied sultry mystique in 1940s Hollywood. Born Constance Frances Marie Ockelman in Brooklyn in 1922, Lake's rise to fame was meteoric. By age 19, she had become one of Paramount's most bankable stars after her breakthrough in I Wanted Wings. Her distinctive look and smoldering on-screen chemistry with Alan Ladd in films like This Gun for Hire and The Blue Dahlia established her as film noir's quintessential femme fatale, inspiring millions of women to adopt her iconic hairstyle, despite the U.S. government's wartime request that she change it, as factory workers imitating the look were getting their hair caught in machinery. Behind Lake's cool, composed screen presence lay a troubled soul, battling significant mental health challenges. Diagnosed with schizophrenia and paranoia in her youth, Lake's condition was exacerbated by the pressures of Hollywood and her escalating alcoholism. Her notorious difficulty on set, forgetting lines, arriving late, and displaying erratic behavior, alienated colleagues and directors. Fellow actress Celeste Holm once remarked that Lake was, professionally, extremely hard to work with, and personally, socially quite unpleasant, while Eddie Bracken described her as a troubled girl and a very sick girl. Lake's career began its precipitous decline after the commercial failure of The Hour Before the Dawn, in which her German accent was widely ridiculed. By 1952, Paramount had terminated her contract. Her personal life unraveled in parallel with her professional downfall. Her second marriage to director André de Toth ended in divorce after producing 4 children, one of whom died in 1943 from uremic poisoning. A third marriage to songwriter Joseph McCarthy lasted just a year. Her alcoholism intensified as her prospects dimmed, further compromising her mental health. The 1950s and 1960s witnessed Lake's dramatic fall from grace. Once commanding $4,500 weekly at her peak, she declared bankruptcy in 1951. She worked briefly as a bartender in New York, where a reporter discovered her, leading to several television appearances that failed to reignite her career. After a brief, unsuccessful comeback attempt with the film Footsteps in the Snow, Lake retreated from public life. She spent her final years in near obscurity, moving between cheap hotels and surviving on Social Security checks. When Lake died of hepatitis and kidney failure in 1973 at age 50, her estate was valued at just $400. For days, her body remained unclaimed at the morgue, a stark, sobering conclusion for an actress who had once captivated America. Rita Hworth. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino, to a Spanish dancer father and a Ziegfeld Follies girl mother, Rita Hayworth's journey to becoming Hollywood's definitive love goddess was paved with exploitation and reinvention. As a child, she was forced to dance professionally with her father in Tijuana border towns, where he presented her as his wife rather than his daughter. These performances for rowdy, often intoxicated crowds began when she was just 12 years old. Later revelations suggested that during this period, Hworth endured sexual abuse from her father, trauma that would shadow her throughout her life and manifest in her complicated relationships with men and her own identity. Hworth's transformation from ethnic performer to all-American bombshell exemplified Hollywood's racial politics of the era. Columbia Pictures, Chief Harry Cohn orchestrated her metamorphosis. She endured painful electrolysis to raise her hairline and dyed her naturally black hair its signature auburn shade. Even her name was anglicized from Cancino to Hworth to downplay her Hispanic heritage. The studio marketed her as the ultimate object of male desire, with her famous Life magazine pinup becoming one of the most requested images among American servicemen during World War II. Her iconic one-glove striptease in Gilda cemented her status as a sex symbol. Yet Hworth lamented, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me." Despite her status as Hollywood royalty, Hworth's personal life was marked by a series of failed marriages and exploitative relationships. Her second husband, Orson Welles, appreciated her intelligence, but ultimately left her. Her third marriage to Prince Ali Khan, making her a genuine princess, collapsed under cultural differences and infidelity. Two more marriages to singer Dick Haymes and producer James Hill ended in divorce, with Hill reportedly being physically abusive. Throughout these relationships, Hworth struggled to establish financial independence, as men frequently controlled or mismanaged her assets. By the 1960s, Hworth's behavior began to change noticeably. She experienced volatile mood swings, forgot lines, appeared disoriented on set, and sometimes failed to recognize close friends. Initially attributed to alcoholism, these symptoms were eventually diagnosed as Alzheimer's disease in 1980, though the condition was so poorly understood at the time that Hworth was often treated as difficult or drunk rather than ill. Her daughter, Princess Yasmin Aga Khan, eventually became her caretaker and later an advocate for Alzheimer's research. When Hworth died in 1987 at age 68, after years of deterioration, her brain was donated to science, helping advance understanding of the disease that had robbed her of dignity in her final years. The woman who had been one of the world's most recognized faces died unable to remember her own iconic image or the millions who had adored her. Marilyn Monroe. Perhaps no figure in Hollywood history embodies the dichotomy between public adoration and private anguish more dramatically than Marilyn Monroe. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, her early life was marked by profound instability. Her mother's psychiatric institutionalization, multiple foster homes, sexual abuse, and an early marriage at 16 to escape her circumstances. This foundation of trauma and abandonment formed the psychological underpinnings of the woman who would become America's most enduring sex symbol. Monroe's transformation from brunette factory worker to platinum blonde bombshell was methodical. She straightened her curly hair, bleached it blonde, removed a slight bulge on her nose, raised her hairline through electrolysis, and perfected the breathy voice and sensual walk that would become her trademarks. Her breakthrough in The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve led to starring roles that showcased her comedic talent in films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire. Yet even as her star rose, Monroe struggled with crippling insecurity and stage fright that frequently manifested as chronic lateness or absence from sets, behavior that earned her a reputation for being difficult despite her box office appeal. Behind the scenes, Monroe battled significant psychological challenges. She suffered from endometriosis that caused severe pain and contributed to her inability to carry pregnancies to term. She reportedly endured at least 3 miscarriages during her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller. Her desperate desire for children, never fulfilled, remained one of her deepest sorrows. Diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, she also experienced episodes of depression and anxiety that she increasingly self-medicated with alcohol and prescription drugs, particularly barbiturates and amphetamines. Monroe's relationships with powerful men revealed her complex need for validation and protection. Her marriages to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio and intellectual Arthur Miller both failed, in part because neither man could reconcile Marilyn with the fragile, intelligent woman seeking legitimacy. Her rumored affairs with both President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert added layers of political intrigue to her already complicated narrative. Many close to Monroe noted her increasing dependence on various psychiatrists, some of whom inappropriately prescribed the cocktail of medications that contributed to her deterioration. When Monroe was found dead in her Brentwood home on August 4, 1962, at age 36, the official cause was listed as probable suicide from acute barbiturate poisoning. However, inconsistencies in the investigation and missing evidence have fueled decades of conspiracy theories. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's life story reads like a Hollywood film, complete with childhood stardom, adult acclaim, and a mysterious ending that continues to generate speculation decades later. Born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko to Russian immigrant parents in 1938, Wood began acting at age 4 and captivated audiences as the skeptical child in the Christmas classic Miracle on 34th Street. Unlike many child stars, she successfully transitioned to adult roles with performances in Rebel Without a Cause, Splendor in the Grass, and West Side Story, earning 3 Academy Award nominations before age 25. Her expressive eyes and emotional depth made her one of the most respected actresses of her generation. Behind Wood's professional success lay complicated family dynamics. Her ambitious mother, Maria, orchestrated her career and reportedly dominated her life choices. Hollywood folklore includes the disturbing story that Maria arranged for a teenage Natalie to date much older men to advance her career. Frank Sinatra reportedly took Natalie out when she was just 15, and she had a relationship with director Nicholas Ray at 16 during the filming of Rebel Without a Cause. These early experiences with older men may have contributed to Wood's complex relationships with male authority figures throughout her life. Wood's personal life was marked by romantic turbulence. Her first marriage to Robert Wagner ended after rumors of his infidelity, possibly with another man. After marriage to British producer Richard Gregson, Wood reconciled with and remarried Wagner in 1972. Friends noted that despite their rekindled romance, the relationship had troubling dynamics, including Wagner's alleged jealousy and controlling behavior. Wood confessed to friends that she had attempted suicide multiple times throughout her life and suffered from a water phobia stemming from her mother's superstitious belief in a drowning prophecy, making the circumstances of her death all the more unsettling. That death came under mysterious circumstances on November 29, 1981. During a Thanksgiving weekend yacht trip to Catalina Island with Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and Captain Dennis Davern, Wood disappeared from the boat overnight. Her body was found floating near the coast the following morning, wearing a nightgown, socks, and a down jacket. The initial ruling of accidental drowning satisfied few, given Wood's well-known fear of dark water. Davern later claimed Wagner and Wood had argued violently that night over her apparent closeness with Walken. In 2011, the case was reopened, and in 2018, Wagner was named a person of interest, as investigators reclassified Wood's death as suspicious. Bruises on her body, initially attributed to her attempts to climb back aboard the boat, were later reassessed as possibly occurring before she entered the water. Wood's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, has defended her stepfather, while Wood's sister Lana remains convinced of foul play. Carole Lombard. Carole Lombard embodied the sparkling effervescence of screwball comedy during Hollywood's golden age, bringing a modern, independent female energy to the screen that resonated with Depression-era audiences. Born Jane Alice Peters in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in 1908, Lombard was discovered at age 12 while playing baseball in the street, an early indication of the tomboy spirit that would later inform her screen persona. After surviving a devastating car accident at 17 that left her with facial scars requiring painful surgery, Lombard developed the resilience and humor that would become her trademarks both on and off screen. Lombard revolutionized comedy for women in Hollywood, proving that glamour and humor could coexist. Unlike many actresses who played either beautiful love interests or comic relief, she managed to be both simultaneously. Films like 20th Century, My Man Godfrey, and Nothing Sacred showcased her perfect timing and willingness to be physically uninhibited on screen. Behind her, comedy lay a shrewd intelligence. She became one of the first women in Hollywood to demand and receive $150,000 per film, making her one of the highest-paid stars of her era. Off-screen, Lombard was beloved for her authenticity and colorful personality. Famous for her liberal use of profanity and practical jokes, she brought a refreshing lack of pretension to Hollywood society. She maintained warm relationships with ex-husband William Powell, even after their divorce, and created a happy home with Clark Gable, whom she married in 1939 after 3 years of courtship during his divorce proceedings from his second wife. Their ranch in Encino became known as the House of Two Gables, where they lived relatively simply despite their stardom, raising livestock and hosting casual gatherings rather than formal Hollywood parties. Lombard's patriotism was as genuine as her on-screen persona. When America entered World War II, she enthusiastically participated in efforts to sell war bonds. In January 1942, she embarked on a tour that raised over $2 million in a single evening in Indianapolis, a record at the time. Despite having a premonition about flying and being offered alternative transportation, Lombard insisted on returning to California by plane to reunite with Gable sooner, reportedly saying, "I don't want to inconvenience anybody. Besides, I've never had anything happen to me flying. It's the safest thing in the world." That decision proved fatal when her TWA flight crashed into Potosi Mountain near Las Vegas on January 16, 1942, killing all 22 aboard, including Lombard's mother and press agent Otto Winkler. At just 33, Lombard became one of America's first high-profile casualties related to the war effort, and President Roosevelt posthumously awarded her the Medal of Freedom. Jean Harlo. Before Marilyn Monroe became synonymous with platinum blonde sexuality, there was Jean Harlo, Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, whose incandescent screen presence defined female sensuality for the pre-code era. Born Harlan Carpenter in Kansas City, Missouri, in 1911, to a successful dentist father and ambitious mother who had once harbored her own Hollywood dreams. Harlo's path to stardom began when she drove a friend to an audition at Fox Studios. Executives noticed the striking 17-year-old, and within 2 years, her small roles caught the attention of Howard Hughes, who cast her in Hell's Angels. Her breakthrough scene, uttering the provocative line, "Would you be shocked if I put on something more comfortable?" announced the arrival of a new kind of screen sexuality. Harlo's platinum blonde hair became her trademark, though maintaining it required weekly applications of ammonia, Clorox bleach, and Lux soap flakes, a painful process that caused her scalp to bleed. MGM publicity claimed she used peroxide, ammonia, Clorox, and soap to achieve her look, but warned, "If you're thinking of platinum in your hair, don't." This distinctive look, combined with her uninhibited performances and husky voice, made her the embodiment of female sexuality in films like Red Dust, Dinner at 8, and Bombshell, the latter ironically parodying her own media image. Behind her confident screen persona, Harlo's personal life was marked by tragedy and exploitation. Her second husband, MGM producer Paul Byrne, died of a gunshot wound 2 months after their wedding in what was officially ruled a suicide, but has generated speculation about possible murder or accidental death. Some film historians suggest MGM executive Louis B. Mayer covered up aspects of the incident to protect the studio and Harlo's image. Her third marriage to cinematographer Harold Rawson lasted less than a year. She found more lasting happiness with actor William Powell, though they never married, despite a 2-year engagement before her death. Harlo's relationship with her controlling mother, Mama Jean, added another layer of complexity to her life. After divorcing Harlo's father, Mama Jean legally adopted her daughter's screen name, creating the bizarre situation where Jean Harlo was legally Jean Harlo's daughter. Her mother maintained control over Harlo's finances and career decisions, often prioritizing financial security over her daughter's well-being. In May 1937, while filming Saratoga with Clark Gable, Harlo began experiencing severe abdominal pain, fatigue, nausea, and water retention. Initially diagnosed with cholecystitis or gallbladder inflammation, her condition rapidly deteriorated. Doctors belatedly recognized kidney failure, likely caused by scarlet fever she had contracted as a teenager. Without modern treatments like dialysis or antibiotics, Harlo died on June 7, 1937, at age 26. Barbara Payton. Few Hollywood cautionary tales illustrate the industry's disposable view of female talent more starkly than the tragic trajectory of Barbara Payton. Born Barbara Lee Redfield in 1927 in Cloquet, Minnesota, Payton possessed the stunning beauty that Hollywood coveted. Platinum blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and a voluptuous figure that earned her modeling contracts before she turned 20. After a brief early marriage that produced a son, she arrived in Hollywood in 1948, where her striking looks quickly garnered attention. Within months, Warner Brothers signed her to a contract, positioning her as their next potential star, with roles alongside James Cagney in Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye and Gary Cooper in Dallas. However, Payton's off-screen behavior quickly overshadowed her professional promise. Her penchant for public affairs with married men, excessive drinking, and brawling in nightclubs made her a liability to the image-conscious studio system. Her most notorious scandal erupted when she became engaged to actor Franchot Tone, while simultaneously conducting an affair with B-movie actor Tom Neal. The situation climaxed in a violent confrontation where Neal beat Tone so severely that he required facial reconstruction surgery. Payton married Tone after his recovery, but the marriage lasted only 53 days before she returned to Neal, a decision that effectively ended her mainstream Hollywood career. Warner Brothers dropped her contract, and Payton's descent was precipitous. She began appearing in low-budget films with titles like Four-Sided Triangle and Bad Blonde. Her alcohol consumption increased dramatically, and her behavior became increasingly erratic. By 1955, just 5 years after starring with Cagney, she was arrested for passing bad checks. Multiple arrests for public drunkenness and prostitution followed. By the late 1950s, she was working as a $5 streetwalker on Sunset Boulevard, sometimes recognized by former fans or industry members who had seen her films. In her brief 1963 autobiography, I Am Not Ashamed, Payton recounted her fall without self-pity. I took the dive from a Hollywood star to a Hollywood tramp, she wrote. I made night spots at my headquarters and picked up new male companions each night. I drank, I fought, and I fornicated. The raw account detailed her years of prostitution, alcoholism, and drug addiction in unflinching terms, though the book itself represented yet another exploitation of her notoriety. Payton's final years were spent in complete destitution. After attempting to reconnect with her parents in San Diego, she was eventually asked to leave due to her continued alcoholism and disruptive behavior. On May 8, 1967, at age 39, she died of heart and liver failure. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez blazed across Hollywood's firmament, with an electrifying presence that earned her the nickname, the Mexican Spitfire. Born Maria Guadalupe Velez de Villalobos in 1908 in San Luis Potosí, Mexico, Velez began her career as a dancer before catching the attention of American filmmakers. Her journey to Hollywood came through famed producer Hal Roach, who discovered her performing in Mexico City and brought her to Los Angeles in 1926. With her expressive eyes, boundless energy, and uninhibited performance style, Velez quickly established herself as one of cinema's most dynamic personalities. Velez's fiery on-screen persona mirrored her tempestuous personal life. Her stormy romance with actor Gary Cooper became Hollywood legend, with their passionate arguments and reconciliations regularly making headlines. Her 5-year marriage to Johnny Weissmuller, Olympic swimmer turned Tarzan actor, was equally volatile, characterized by mutual physical altercations and public scenes. Police were frequently called to their home during explosive arguments. After their divorce, Velez engaged in numerous high-profile affairs, including relationships with actors Arturo de Cordova and Harold Maresch. Despite her personal drama, Velez maintained a successful career throughout the 1930s and early 1940s. She starred in the popular Mexican Spitfire series, playing Carmelita Lindsay, a role that, while comedically engaging, also reinforced stereotypes about Latin women as hot-tempered and hypersexual. Hollywood's limited vision for Mexican actresses constrained Velez's artistic range, though she demonstrated considerable comedic talent and timing. In Mexico, however, she was celebrated as La Velez, a homegrown star who had conquered Hollywood while maintaining her cultural identity. By late 1944, Velez found herself in a precarious position that reflected the double standards facing women in the entertainment industry. At 36, she discovered she was pregnant by her latest lover, French actor Harold Maresch, who refused to marry her when informed of the pregnancy. In an era when unwed motherhood could destroy a career and bring public shame, Velez faced an impossible choice. On December 13, 1944, she arranged her bedroom with flowers and candles, wrote a suicide note, and took an overdose of Seconal. She had reportedly planned to be found beautifully arranged on her bed, but the physical effects of the barbiturates caused her to become nauseated, and she died with her head in the toilet, a final indignity that would become the subject of tasteless jokes and urban legends. The circumstances of Velez's death underscore the cruel paradox faced by actresses of the era, celebrated for their sexuality on screen, yet punished for its consequences in real life. While exaggerated accounts of her death have sometimes overshadowed her career accomplishments, contemporary reassessments have highlighted her pioneering status as one of the first successful Latin American actresses in Hollywood and her skillful development of the Spitfire persona as a means of maintaining control over her image in a system that sought to exoticize and limit her. Lupe Velez's legacy deserves to be remembered not for the sensationalized details of her death, but for the barriers she broke and the path she forged for future generations of Latin American performers in Hollywood. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer represented a rare combination in 1930s Hollywood: exceptional beauty paired with fierce intellectual independence and disdain for the studio system's control. Born in Seattle in 1913, to a lawyer father and opinionated mother, Farmer showed early signs of the nonconformity that would later define her reputation. As a high school student, she won a contest with an essay titled "God Dies," causing local controversy. After winning another contest in college, she chose a trip to the Soviet Union over Hollywood, establishing her as politically suspect in an increasingly conservative industry. Despite her initial resistance to Hollywood's allure, Farmer signed with Paramount in 1935. Her early roles in films like Come and Get It, where she played dual roles as both mother and daughter, showcased her considerable range and earned critical acclaim. Howard Hawks, who directed her in the film, recognized her potential, stating she Had more talent than anyone I ever worked with. Unlike many starlets who embrace the publicity machine, Farmer rejected the system's expectations. She refused to attend parties, give meaningless interviews, or pretend romantic interest in co-stars for publicity. Her intellect and serious approach to acting made her an anomaly in a system that preferred compliant female stars. Farmer's downfall began with her determination to balance Hollywood films with serious theater work. Against studio wishes, she joined the Group Theater in New York, studying under influential director Harold Clurman. When Paramount demanded her return to Hollywood for film commitments, the conflict between artistic integrity and contractual obligations intensified her growing disillusionment. Her increasing alcohol consumption and confrontational behavior on sets led to her being labeled difficult and unstable. By 1942, Farmer had accumulated several arrests for drunk driving, assaulting a hairdresser, and violating probation. The most devastating chapter of Farmer's life began when her mother had her committed to Western State Hospital in Washington. During multiple institutionalizations between 1944 and 1950, Farmer allegedly endured horrific treatments, including hydrotherapy, insulin shock therapy, and possibly electroconvulsive therapy. While the oft-repeated claim that she underwent a lobotomy has been disputed by biographers, the treatments she did receive were certainly traumatic. Farmer later described being raped by orderlies, gnawed on by rats, and poisoned by tainted food, chained in padded cells, strapped into straitjackets, and half-drowned in ice baths. Peagant Whistle. Perhaps no Hollywood tragedy more perfectly symbolizes shattered dreams than the story of Peagant Whistle, whose suicide from the iconic Hollywood sign transformed her from a struggling actress into a timeless metaphor for the industry's darker side. Born Lillian Millicent Entwistle in 1908 in Port Talbot, Wales, she immigrated to America as a child after her mother's death. Drawn to performing from an early age, Entwistle established herself as a promising Broadway actress throughout the 1920s, working with the Theatre Guild and earning praise from critics and established actors alike. Bette Davis reportedly saw Entwistle in the play The Wild Duck and later commented, "I knew I had to be an actress. I want to be exactly like Peg Entwistle." Entwistle's decision to leave New York for Hollywood in May 1932 came during the Great Depression, when theater work had become scarce. Like countless others, she arrived in Los Angeles with dreams of translating her stage success to the silver screen. She moved in with her uncle, Harold Entwistle, at 2428 Beechwood Drive, an address that placed the Hollywood sign in her daily view, a constant reminder of the industry she hoped to conquer. Her sole film role came in RKO's 13 Women, where she played a small part as a woman driven to suicide, an eerie foreshadowing of her own fate. Before 13 Women could even be released, Entwistle's Hollywood aspirations were crumbling. RKO shortened the film and reduced her already small role. With no other offers forthcoming, and the financial pressures of the Depression intensifying, Entwistle faced the prospect of returning east as a failure. Friends later reported that she had become increasingly depressed and withdrawn in her final weeks. On September 16, 1932, she told her uncle she was meeting friends at a nearby drugstore. Instead, she hiked up the steep slope of Mount Lee to the Hollywoodland sign, a difficult climb of over 400 feet. 2 days later, a hiker found a woman's shoe, jacket, and purse containing a suicide note. The note read simply, "I am afraid. I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain. P.E." Her body was discovered in a ravine below the sign's letter H. She was only 24 years old. The autopsy listed multiple fractures and internal injuries caused by the fall. Adding to the tragedy's poignancy, a letter arrived at her uncle's home after her death, an offer for a leading role in a play about a woman driven to suicide. News of Entwistle's death created a brief sensation in the Los Angeles papers, with the Los Angeles Times running the headline, "Actress Ends Life by Leap from Letter H of Hollywoodland Sign." However, as with many Hollywood tragedies, public attention quickly moved on. Entwistle's remains were cremated and sent to Ohio to rest beside her father. Over the decades, stories of her ghost haunting the Hollywood sign have become part of local lore, with hikers and park rangers reporting sightings of a blonde woman in 1930s clothing disappearing near the sign, accompanied by the scent of gardenia perfume, Entwistle's signature fragrance. The tragic irony of Peg Entwistle's story is that her death achieved precisely what she had sought in life: immortality in Hollywood. Thelma Todd. With her vibrant comedic talent and luminous beauty, Thelma Todd seemed destined for long-term Hollywood success before her mysterious death cut short a promising career. Born in Lawrence, Massachusetts, in 1906, Todd initially trained as a schoolteacher before winning a beauty pageant that brought her to Hollywood's attention. Unlike many actresses known primarily for their looks, Todd possessed genuine comedic abilities that distinguished her in a crowded field. She appeared in over 120 films between 1926 and 1935, working with comedy legends, including the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy, and Buster Keaton. Her quick wit and natural timing earned her the nickname Hot Toddy, while her blonde beauty led publicists to dub her the Ice Cream Blonde. Todd's entrepreneurial spirit set her apart from many of her contemporaries. Growing weary of Hollywood's demanding schedule and recognizing the precarious nature of an actress's career, she opened Thelma Todd's Sidewalk Cafe on the Pacific Coast Highway in 1934. The elegant restaurant and club became popular with Hollywood's elite, while providing Todd with financial independence rare for actresses of the era. However, this business venture may have contributed to the circumstances surrounding her death, as rumors later emerged about mob interests attempting to use her restaurant for illegal gambling operations, offers Todd reportedly refused. Her personal life had complex dimensions that would later fuel speculation about her death. Her marriage to agent Pat DeCicco, who later wed Gloria Vanderbilt, was marred by reports of domestic violence before ending in divorce. Todd maintained a close friendship with director Roland West, with whom she was romantically involved despite his marriage to actress Jewel Carmen. West lived in an apartment above Todd's cafe, and his possessive attitude toward her reportedly created tension in their relationship. On December 14, 1935, Todd attended a party at the Trocadero nightclub, where witnesses later recalled she appeared to have an unpleasant exchange with her ex-husband DeCicco. Her chauffeur drove her home in the early morning hours of December 15th, where West reportedly waited for her. The next morning, Todd was found dead in her car in the garage near her cafe, the victim of carbon monoxide poisoning. She was just 29 years old. The circumstances immediately raised questions. Todd was found slumped in the seat of her Packard convertible, wearing the same evening clothes from the night before, including a mink coat and expensive jewelry, ruling out robbery as a motive. Blood on her face suggested a possible altercation before her death. The garage was locked from the outside, with a key that only a few people possessed. Additionally, Todd had expressed a specific fear of carbon monoxide poisoning and had instructed her chauffeur never to leave the car running in the garage. 3 theories emerged: suicide, accident, or murder. The official ruling listed her death as suicide, though a grand jury investigation labeled it accidental. However, persistent rumors implicated various potential culprits: her ex-husband, DeCicco, jealous lover Roland West, who allegedly confessed on his deathbed to locking Todd in the garage, though this claim remains unverified, or mob figures angry about her refusal to allow gambling at her cafe. And there you have it, the untold truths behind the glamour of Hollywood's most iconic queens. Behind every spotlight was a shadow, and now you've seen both. If you found this deep dive into old Hollywood's golden, and sometimes grim, passed as fascinating as we did. Give this video a thumbs up, share it with your fellow classic film lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more hidden stories from the silver screen. Hit that bell icon so you never miss the next legend we bring back to life. Until next time, stay curious, stay cinematic,